All right, it being the top of the hour, I'm going to call today's meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals to order. We only have one item on the agenda for this meeting, which is the continuing discussion concerning the appeal of the zoning enforcement officer's decision at 41 Birch Road. Since our last meeting, at the time the public hearing is closed, the outlines of a draft decision been put together. They were sent to town council to weigh in on and provide some proposed red lines. Those are the items that have been provided to you. And so I think at this point we can sort of dive in on the discussion. There's a few ways we can handle this. I'm open to listening to folks' suggestions to the extent that there are issues or topics of sort of a general nature to discuss, which is basically where we would pick up from where we left off the last time. I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, you know, it might be worth sort of just going through the decision just as a framework of things to talk about, of things that folks agree with, things that folks don't agree with, things that we think are missing, things that we don't think needs to be said, whatever it might be. So I'm happy to do it either way. I've got my own thoughts on what we should do, but I'm going to stop talking and see if others have opinion on the other first.
I mean, personally, I'm okay with using the framework, but I have a feeling that other people may want to discuss more general issues, so I'm amenable to either approach.
Yeah. Sorry, Andy, were you going to say something?
Just an observation, just quickly reading through this, the terminology, we need this sober living home and then this sober home. So we just need to figure out what the correct.
Yeah, no, I have that flag sort of as well.
Yeah, that's all I wanted, just because the rest of it, we just need to go through it, and going through it.
Yeah.
Page and verse is okay with me.
Okay, so I'm sort of of the mindset to use it as a framework to just give us some boundaries, so that you don't end up talking for 3 hours. Not that I don't mind talking about this for 3 hours, of course, but you know, that it gives us some concrete. At least we can make some progress. Whether or not we reach agreement on things, we can always put things off. And just as a reminder, part of the reason to have this meeting before our next regularly scheduled meeting was to give us enough time so that we've got the backstop of the April 6th committee, which we will have one other agenda item to discuss, but that one actually should be pretty.
It should be quick.
It should be quick. So it's somewhat ministerial.
What is the other item? I'm just curious.
What's that?
The other item? What's the other item on the list?
It concerns a non-substantial, insubstantial modification on the comprehensive plan for the Stow Acres development.
Comprehensive permit.
The comprehensive permit. Sorry, did I say plan? Sorry about that. The comprehensive permit. So it should be somewhat straightforward, but that'll be on the agenda for next meeting. So, all right, should we just start? Oh, go ahead, please.
Well, I'd like to just go through it as it is.
Okay.
But before we get started, you know, we have no input official what sober home stands for, what they're there for. It's all hearsay. They haven't responded to us. They're like, they don't exist. And I think we should state that.
Oh, no, I agree.
Specifically in the decision.
I agree.
That
I've started going through it and kind of putting my own stuff.
It may be sober for disabled people. It may not be. We have no statement of purpose or anything like that.
Yeah. No, I agree. And when we get to that point, I'll talk about it. I've got some edits that I was going through already. They just weren't ready for distribution.
And we also, for the group that actually runs it, from Acton, that's a separate LLC incorporated in this state, and we have no statement from them either. What, you know, there's hearsay going to the building inspector, but that's all hearsay because we don't have it in writing, signed by them.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
And I think we need to point that out.
I completely agree. Yeah, I think that was one thing I saw. We'll get to that point. Is that there's certain aspects of what I would describe as the chronology of, like, I want to be a little bit more clear about what has been said and also what has not been said. We don't need to necessarily I'll leave it up to the board as to whether or not we want, how far we want to go, but I think we can simply say like, X has been said, nothing has been said in return, or radio silent, however you want to put it, but I agree that I think
There's one other thing, town council. I would like to be able to discuss with town council Mr. Bryan's latest memo of the 20th of February. She came to us on the 17th of February, but we didn't have his memo or his document. And therefore, even if she commented on it, we never had a chance to question it. And her decisions is in my opinion, Well, I like to know what her opinion was based on. I also went through the Federal Fair Housing Act, Section 3604, and it always refers to individuals, people. It doesn't refer to corporations that I see. So we're dealing with a corporation here. The corporation owns the house, and a corporation will run the operation, supposedly. Okay, so there's things that I don't have enough information. I'm not satisfied that we have the information to make that decision.
So I don't think we have the power to ask her to be here, but I think we can put in the request.
You can request her to be here.
Okay.
So it's up to the chair to request, or to, so if you'd like Robin here on the 6th, I can see if she's available, but I don't know if she will be.
I think our two requests would be for that, and then depending on whatever revised version we have of this, that, you know, she takes a look at that as well.
This is important to the town, it's important to the residents.
I think it's also, I'm just trying to think of also sort of options that we can be as flexible as possible. To the extent that she's not available, I'm still on country vacation or whatever. I assume that it is also possible that we could send written questions to get a written response back if she's not available.
Yes.
So that might be another alternative if you want to submit questions to Michael to that extent. To her, you know, clarify the following statement. Tell me.
Well, it's kind of hard to question her if she's.
Oh, no, I understand. I'm just trying to, like, you know, I don't know.
She's told us what her opinion was before his letter. But
True, the argument she had when she came to talk to us. So, okay, well, we can put that. All right, well, let's.
this won't be my last objection.
Okay, so why don't we just kind of start with the easy stuff on page 1. And we'll just break it down. All right, any issues with, well, we'll start on page 1. So specifically sections, we'll hit sections Roman numeral 1 and Roman numeral 2. So for Roman numeral 2, I would like to add the following sentence, or have people consider the following sentence. Although not required, neither the owner of the property nor any representative, 1, attended either public hearing, and 2, did not provide the board with any written submission.
Wouldn't that be part of findings rather than proceedings? Who's questioning them?
I was going to put them in both. I just wanted to say that they as part. The only reason is because we talk about the public hearing. We talk about which vote of us showed up. So you know,
I'd be okay with that.
Maria, you good with that?
Yes.
Sorry, I want to make sure.
Yep, yep.
Okay. Any other thoughts on, like I said, sections, Roman numerals, section 1 and 2?
Well, in fact, not put in, oh, zoning approval members, okay, you did already, never mind.
Anything with Roman numeral 3? So Roman numeral 3, I actually do think we're missing 2 pieces of correspondence. I think it's the,
I added those in.
oh, you did?
In the
Okay.
paper one, because I sent her before I added those in, and
Okay.
then I just forwarded it to you directly.
Okay, the 2 ones with Frank?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have the one with Frank and town council, and then the one with just Frank that we sent the day of.
On March 23rd to you.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, because I was going through it, I go, something's missing. Okay.
Frank and, Silver Home, what were you saying about their,
Yeah,
that's that one, okay.
yeah, it's
Okay.
these 2. Yeah,
Okay.
because the communication you had with them was verbal.
Okay.
So yeah, the whole email string here.
Yeah. With proceedings, I mean, in terms of people present, should we also mention that there were people from the neighborhood present? We talked about who was here, who wasn't here. Well, on the other hand, they're not really part of the legal proceedings, so.
Yeah, they are, because they're giving us input.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's in the minutes.
the minutes considered part of the record, the minutes part
When
of
they
the
say
record.
For
something.
the record.
Yeah, I mean, there was a list in the minutes of every single person who spoke up, their address, as well as the applicant.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, as long as it's.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
yeah, okay. Perfect. Okay, anything else for 1, 2, and 3? Figure out the easy ones first.
So do we need to either allude to or somehow indicate that town council was present at the second meeting?
I don't
It's in the
know.
minutes.
How do we, I mean, true, that's the whole, it's in the minutes there, her correspondence. I don't know, we typically,
We don't usually include staff in these decisions. So it
Nice.
was, and she's considered to be staff of the board.
I guess it is for the minutes of that March, I'm gonna take it wrong, it's March 3rd,
Second.
second, something like that.
Yeah, I don't have all the dates, I'm getting confused, what date was what.
So,
Okay,
all right, so if you've got anything else for 1, 2, and 3, let's move on to Roman numeral 4, the findings. So I think we just go with this paragraph by paragraph, or section by section. And like I said, I've got some places where I think things should be added, so if other people think things should be added, or for that matter, removed, you know, let's, if you think, I guess my suggestion is, if you think something should be added, wait for the spot where you think it should go, and then maybe like, well, you know, just, we can talk about there. So, starting with 1, and this goes to Andy's point, which I was also wondering too. First question, A, is there a difference between sober home and sober living home? That's 1. And then the second question is, do we need to define what that is? Because we don't actually define what a sober home is. I know there's a colloquial sort of understanding of what that means.
right.
But
I would call it a halfway house for people recovering from.
no, but halfway house is that's a different definition. Halfway house is, in my understanding, a halfway house is usually court ordered. You have to go there for a certain period of time, you know,
Right, and
as
if you go
opposed to,
go to the NASH site, they're very specific that it's not a halfway house.
yeah.
Well, I was gonna say a halfway house for people in treatment for.
But it's not happening.
for-
No,
it's not- It's not the proper
I don't think
terminology.
you can't be.
They can leave at any time.
You can leave it anytime at a halfway house, and you can leave it anytime in the sober house too, can't you?
I don't know, I've never been in one.
So I would back this conversation up, kind of along the lines that Ernie was pointing at, is who defined this as a sober home?
The owner,
Oh, the LLC, right?
the well, yeah, the representative of the owner.
Well, aren't they under some kind of, jurisdiction and review from the state?
No,
No,
nope, not at
they
all.
don't have to.
No, they're certified. Nothing, there's no follow-up.
I can add a little clarity. I was using the term sober living home when I was doing the minutes, because that was said a few times, and then sober home. So in the decision where it says sober living home, that was something that I wrote, and if it just says sober home, that's what town council wrote.
I like sober living home.
So
But I mean, but you consider there to be a distinction?
I don't consider
It's
there
not
to be a
copyrighted.
distinction.
Okay.
It's not copyrighted though.
No, it's, yeah.
One does emphasize, and I don't understand what the thing was of it, but I do know in my experience, but somehow they had to separate out the living from the treatment. That was my understanding.
I guess my personal preference would just to say sober home
Yeah,
and just leave it like
I
that.
think that that's the most kind of bland, broad, that's the word.
And in fact, as far as we know, in this whole decision, we don't have a problem with anybody being in a recovery program because it never brings up the issue. Only our residents brought up that issue.
Right.
So there's no discrimination here because we have nothing to discriminate against. It's a corporation in that house that owns the house, and that's what we have to deal with. We don't know what the policies are, or what their incorporation statement is, or anything
So
like that.
let me throw this out there. I'm taking what you're saying and seeing if you're going where I think you're going. The guy, I think his name is Eddie. Am I right?
Yep.
Eddie, I'm sorry to be sort of informal about this. So Eddie, who is the
House manager.
who we believe is the manager of the house.
Of the creative, whatever it is.
Yeah. Represented at least to one abutter that he's operating, or him said that they're operating a sober home in the house, and Nick Diamandis, I'm going to butcher the last name, obviously indicated that to Frank, because that's when he said, we're not going to be doing this anymore.
That doesn't mean anything either.
That's, yeah. I mean, theoretically, that may not be true.
We don't know what's true because we had never had anything informally from them saying what they're doing or what they're.
Right, beyond their sort of verbal representations
That's right.
to one abutter
That is correct.
and to the building official.
That's correct.
So we know it's a sober home, we just don't know what that means.
Well, we know they have represented
That it's a sober home.
that it is a sober home. What they consider to be a sober home, what is actually taking place in there.
What their criteria is for being in the program,
Right.
we don't know. We know nothing.
Don't they have some kind of mission statement somewhere?
If you go to the Massachusetts Alliance for Sober Housing, they describe the program. They also describe some of the characteristics of whether you are certified or not. They talk about training and or not, and that the principle here is that once you instantiate one of these locations, it's a peer-to-peer relationship. There's no formal training that goes on inside the facility, according to what they describe. Okay? So that's as much information that I can share with you that I think I know about this.
Well, that does clarify what it is. And as far as peer-to-peer, I mean, that's actually the basis for Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah, maybe.
So
But it does go back to the fact that this is all an assumption. It's not like we had someone who lives there who showed up and said, I live there, this is what's going on,
Right.
Engage wellness action. The general character of the business. SUD day treatment. What's SUD stand for? IOP and outpatient group therapy.
Substance use disorder, SUD.
Okay. That's all we know.
What are you reading from?
From their corporate certificate organization, that state of Massachusetts.
But
The
that wasn't
treatment, but
submitted with the record, that wasn't.
Hmm?
That wasn't submitted with the record, was it?
No, I just found it. No, I went searching for it.
My question is that for this business though? Like, if you're questioning if,
We have nothing from 41 Birch Hill Road LLC.
and that's public record, like that stuff. Right,
That's
that's.
Well, we're just, yeah,
That's public record,
That's
yes.
public record.
Thought I had one printed off for the LLC. 41 Birch Hill. I don't remember where it is.
I think the concern is that it wasn't entered into the record.
Okay. Okay.
So.
So we have we know nothing about this operation.
Beyond what they've represented
Hearsay.
in a secondhand way.
Yeah.
That is fair.
So as far as we know, it's a corporation trying to do business in a residential zone.
We don't know what it's doing.
Well, they bought, LLC owns the house.
Period.
They
I'm
can rent- they
saying,
can rent-
yeah,
Yeah, they can rent it out to people if they want to.
Maybe this was their.
okay, well, let's take a second first. Let's unpackage that in just a second. I want to go do this section by section here, okay? So,
That's fine. Okay.
yeah. So,
I'll shut up.
no,
No, I
no,
know.
no, these are, like, you know, they're valid points to discuss. All right. So are we okay, to the extent that we have to refer to this as either a sober home or a sober living home, are we okay just using the term sober home?
Yes, we know what we're talking about.
Okay,
To that extent.
okay. Do we need to be hyper-technical and say that we consider it to be the same as anything that's been referred to as sober living home? So it's, we don't need to, okay. Well, to the extent that we need to, we'll put it in the minutes. For this meeting, okay. Okay. Okay, so, number one.
I have no trouble with number one. Is it just stays like that?
Okay. Any other thoughts on number one? Sorry, section, Roman numeral 4, section 1, it's under the findings of the board, it's on page 3.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we go to number 1. I'll take that as yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
number 2. The only thing I have in number 2 is I think a typo. In the second red line sentence, the decision by the board addresses the applicant's appeal of both decisions. I think that needs to be capitalized or not.
so capitalize that.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I apologize. No, because the building commissioner's decisions is lowercase and the decision is capitalized. That's right. That's my bad. So, no worries.
This one I question a little, the nearly identical part.
I circled the same word, yeah.
In fact, I understand his first decision to almost not give a designation.
I mean, I will say if you put them side by side, like they're pretty close. I mean, that being said, for what it's worth, the documents themselves are in the record. So if you have a concern about saying it, you could delete it. And it doesn't make a difference because ultimately, if you put them side by side, you can just compare them yourself.
One has an extra line.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
Right,
there was, yeah, there are the 2 emails in the packet.
Yeah.
So one just has an extra line that has the contact information for the property owner.
So maybe the word is similar instead of identical.
Yeah.
Doesn't really,
I'm gonna say substantially similar.
it's not that deep.
It says nearly identical. Similar.
I mean, I'm agnostic either way.
You're usually right.
Maria and Andy, your calls.
I'm not gonna force fit it, that's just a personal preference in
Yeah.
terms of
Similar.
It's substantially similar?
In a range.
Okay, we'll change,
I share his personal preference.
so we'll change nearly identical to substantially similar. That's fine.
Say that again, what did you just say?
What?
Where'd the word substantial come from?
So we're gonna change nearly identical to substantially similar.
Just similar, but.
Oh, because, yeah, Maria said, oh yeah, I'm similar. I said substantially, so,
So substantially similar in the decision.
yes,
Similar.
substantially similar. Okay, number 3.
Does it say who referred to it as a single family dwelling?
Sorry, what sentence? Number 3,
Second sentence, yeah.
the term single family dwelling is not defined in the zoning bylaw.
Well, it says that it's referred to, but it doesn't say who refers it to. Is it referred to under the zoning bylaw, under the building commissioner?
Sorry, maybe I'm missing this.
I think he's saying that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the word, sorry.
Second
Contains one
sentence.
building that is referred to as a single.
I'm just asking.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
I did.
Is it in the?
In a memo that I wrote,
Yeah.
I referenced that the assessors can classify it as use 1010, which is a single family house.
So we could say it's referred to from the Board of Assessors?
We can,
Okay, that's fine.
if that's one of the citations.
Yeah.
Is there a dash for a single family?
Yeah. Yes. A dash.
It's the last time I'll find something like that.
No, it won't. All right, okay, are we good with, 1, 2, 3? All right, number 4.
I think we need to add
So,
at the end about it as determined by testimony of the residents.
so. That's what happens when I red line it now. I don't know what the original said. So I had a couple, so here are my suggestions, if you don't mind. I was gonna rewrite 4 to say the following. After the property was sold in September 2025, ownership transferred to a for-profit limited liability company, which remains the current owner.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
It did transfer in December.
Okay.
So it was bought by 2 individuals.
Right.
And then it transferred in
3
December.
individuals.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't have the December part, so.
Yeah.
Well, but I'm gonna keep reading.
Yeah.
So after this transfer, I mean, I do say at that point, before we talk, after this transfer, sober living home began operating at the property. Or we can say, based on information provided during the public hearing, it appears that a sober living home, I don't know, I was flipping between living and home, so just go with me, that a sober home is either being operated by the LLC or another corporate entity that is affiliated with the LLC and maybe also operating or otherwise affiliated with a treatment center in Acton. I mean, I couched it in saying, based on information provided during the public hearing, it appears, because we don't know. So
I'm all for it.
to be discussed.
Yeah, I do like recognizing that there's some sort of separation going on there.
Lenny, your face is talking.
Oh, it is?
No, I want to make sure.
No, I don't have any problem with, that elaboration of it.
Well, no, I think it's an appropriate definition or statement. Because that, as far as we know, and there is evidence to substantiate that it is the case.
Are you comfortable there's enough in the record based on how I said that? Okay. Then I've got,
I mean, when you say operating as a, so sort of living room, is there something in the documents in the, in the registry of deeds or some other document that defines and says that this is a sober home?
No.
The only thing that we have, again, is the two statements. One that was made to the neighbor by Eddie, the house manager, where his alleged title is. The statement that Nick Diamandis, sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing that, who I believe is one of the owners and managers of the LLC, when he indicated to Frank, he wasn't saying that they are operating a sober home. He just said, we're going to stop operating it as a sober home, which of course indicates that that's what he represented doing.
Maybe something should be said in that statement then that the owner operator, Nick Diamandis, made a comment that the facility was operating as a sober home.
So here are the three additional. Oh, sorry. I apologize. Were you gonna say something?
No.
Okay. So here are the three other new paragraphs I was going to add just to build in the chronology. And I can send these to you afterwards too, so don't go. In or around October 2025 or early November 2025, abutters or neighbors observed furniture being delivered to the property, including 9 beds and 9 dressers, which was noted during the public hearing, as well as an email listed in document 2B of section 3. That's the internal email, I think, between Denise and I believe the chief of police. Then I say, in or around late November 2025, the building commissioner sent a letter, listed as document 3C, to the new owner of the property, restating certain applicable bylaw and regulatory requirements, with which the owner would need to comply. No evidence has been presented that the new owner responded to this letter. And then in mid-February 2026, the building commissioner spoke to a representative of the LLC who indicated it would be closing the sober home and renting it to a single family within, quote, 2 weeks, unquote. The building commissioner repeatedly requested that the owner confirm this representation in writing. At present, no such written confirmation has been received. That's it fair? Any thoughts about that? I mean, be picky, please. I'm just like, I was kind of writing this on the fly, not on the fly, but I just wanted to kind of build out the chronology just a little bit. And I mean, the records are all in there. It's really just pulling some of the facts out of the statements and the documents and putting it here. So. And by the way, there's going to be sorry, I'm about to say what you're going to do. There'll be a revised draft that gets circulated before. Once you read it, you might be like, "No, I read it. I don't agree with it, or I don't like this word." But I'm just trying to get a feel if people are like, okay with that direction. Because even reading it, I would have to make some tweaks. But
yeah, I think it's fine. I would agree with it. At least to your point, we'll see the first draft and then edit accordingly if needed.
The one thing that bothers me about the LLC responding that they're not going to rent it, we don't know what that means either, because that's a whole another bag of worms. It can be the same thing, just transferring ownership of the property to an individual, and that the individual that would probably work, but we don't know what he means by that.
right. All I'm saying is
It hasn't stopped anything.
right. And I think later on we can make an indication of saying like, what evidence has been presented as to whether or not that's correct. If there's any weight to that or not. So okay. All right.
On 5.
Yes, the applicant claims. So, I guess I had some thoughts on, well, so for the first sentence, I actually just wanted to simplify it a little bit and have it just say, the applicant claims that the owner's use of the property violates the bylaw.
Reference to what bylaw?
Or
Or is it the bylaw in general?
I think bylaw is defined as the Stow zoning bylaw.
Just the same.
Yeah. I think we can just keep that first sentence more simple. And then the next sentence, the applicant requested zoning enforcement from the building commissioner. I was gonna say against that use.
That's what it says.
Right, I was gonna, oh, Sherry said that, never mind. Sorry, I have two different, different colors on my screen from the red line from what I did, but unfortunately one's blue and one's red and one's purple. So maybe I'm colorblind. The request was denied by the building commissioner. Okay. The next sentence, though, I don't like. I don't think, if you read the building commissioner's decision, I don't think it goes as far as what it says here. It's maybe there's an implication by it, but he doesn't outright say it. You know what I mean?
It doesn't say deny.
He doesn't. That's true, though.
That's where I was getting confused also.
He doesn't. That's true. I mean, the tricky part about that is that if you didn't deny it, we can't even have appeal.
Well, the building inspector did write Brian a response.
Right.
He did. Right.
Yeah.
Right. But
I don't remember exactly what it says, but
he doesn't actually say it's denied. He just says, but if you want to appeal my decision, I think the understanding is that you don't like what I just did.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you're right. He doesn't actually say, he doesn't use the word deny. But I think the fact that he says, if you disagree, you can appeal. And that's how we're here. So, but I don't think he specifically, in the second sentence where it was town council says, the request was denied by the building commissioner who determined that a sober home may operate from the property so long as it is operating within the bylaws definition. I don't think he actually goes that far and says it in the decision. I understand we have the decision, so it speaks for itself. I would be more inclined to say if the building commissioner restated the bylaws definition of a dwelling unit and a boarding house. He did do that.
He also went, he went so far in one of them to say it's it's functioning as a boarding house.
Yeah,
Everybody hates when I bring that up.
I know.
in boarding house, we should put it in quotes and provide a footnote defining what we mean by boarding.
I think boarding house is actually, I think Michael already did that, or town council, someone did it. This is it, the definition's already in here.
Oh,
They do
okay.
that later, deeper on. We'll get there.
Well, I think he did make more of a determination. From what I'm reading, the memo I'm reading, he states, the limits on the number of people that are allowed in the residence. And then he says, there's no indication that there are more than 5 people living at the property.
But he doesn't reference the sober home use. And
That's right.
so he's just simply saying, this is what a dwelling is, this is what a boarding house is, doesn't look like there's more than 5 people there. Period.
Yeah.
So that's why I guess I didn't like I disagreed with the inclusion of saying that he determined that a sober home may operate there. I don't think maybe it's implied, but he didn't say it.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily
We're
want
just telling them what they
say
can use the house for.
Well, maybe what this should say then is that he determined that there were no more than 5 unrelated people living there. And I'll get into the issue of whether it was a sober house or not. He's referring to the bylaw itself of residential use. And from his determination, from what he saw, he determined that there were no more than 5 unrelated people living there.
I would just caution, you're reading off from the memo, and that's not from the building commissioner. That was my interpretation.
He actually doesn't say that.
No,
He defines it. He goes, the Stow bylaw clearly limits the number of people who may live. It says may live at the sober home to 5. The owners have been informed about this. If they wish to have more than 5 person living, they'll need to apply for approval.
Yeah,
There's a lot of ifs.
Do we really know even specifically what he did say? I mean, if we're just interpreting it on a memo, I mean,
What the building commissioner said.
yeah.
Yeah, I just quoted. His decision.
Yeah.
It's in the back of the application.
That's what, 6, I think.
Yeah, 8 or 6. Yes. Substantially.
This one's the 8.
So this is his actual decision.
Yeah. This is quite a difference from the first one. And not difference, I think it's more specific.
Is this his actual decision or is this an interpretation of his decision?
No, that's his decision.
That's literally
6 and 8 are the decisions.
Is it correct to say that 8? Because I feel like 60 describes both.
6 and 8 are, they're pretty much the same.
Oh, okay.
Because what's said here is proposed use of a sober home is considered a rooming or boarding house.
Right.
Yes, that's what Maria's been there.
Sorry.
Circling.
And then it says if they wish to have more than 5 people, they need to apply for it.
Yeah, that's what it says. He doesn't say, in his decision, he doesn't actually say, you know.
So he doesn't really say it's not a boarding house, it's a family residence or.
Well, he basically declares dwelling unit as the basis for the discussion.
He's saying, this is what's permitted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, as long as you buy with that, you're fine.
Yeah, this was permitted. I told him that.
Mhm.
And if you agreed with my decision, you didn't do it.
And it was consistent with that in each memo.
Make sure the attachment 6 also.
All right.
This is 6.
This is the same thing.
So the way I was thinking that that section could read, I'll just throw that out there, is the applicant claims that the owner's use of the property violates the bylaw. The applicant requested zoning enforcement from the building commissioner against that use. The request was denied by the building commissioner. The building commissioner restated the bylaw's definitions of dwelling unit and boarding house. The building commissioner also stated that he would inform the owner of the property of the applicable portions of the bylaw, which appears to be a reference to the letter listed as document 3C, which is in the record.
Yeah.
And then just, that's it.
For reading his decision again, first he says, this is a boarding house, and then he goes on to define what a dwelling is, which is, no more than 5 unrelated people.
Yeah.
So if he's making reference to this dwelling unit, he must think there's some connection to what's going on there and the dwelling unit, as opposed to a boarding house. So it seems a little bit confusing.
That's what it feels like.
The way that has spoken instructing is somewhat together. That's why I think it's easier just to keep it simple. He restated the definitions. He referenced the letter that he sent to them. And that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always restated, it's only the decision that's in there. All right. Section 6. I mentioned, check to see if that's the exact quote from section 3, but I presume that's correct.
And it said, shall not discriminate against disabled persons. As far as we know, we have no paperwork that says it will be used for disabled persons.
I think we're calling it a sober home.
Yeah, we don't know what, they have not told us what that is.
Well, this is just stating what the law of discrimination is. It's not saying, you know, whether it applies or not. It's
No,
saying,
I know that's what it's saying, you know, if that's a true statement, what, section 3 says. Okay,
Yeah, this is just the declaration.
right.
All right, 7,
I would add something to 7. And, you know, it mentions the Americans with Disability Act, and it mentions the Fair Housing Law. I would add the United States Constitution, 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law.
I'll ask other people how they feel. I mean, the list is just meant to be sort of exemplars, you know, protected by state and federal laws. Also, one might theorize if it's protected by the Constitution, then they didn't need the ADA.
Well, you can say that about any
I know.
any law, you know. I mean, why did we need a voting rights discrimination law when it's right in the 15th Amendment explicitly?
Okay, I have no trouble with the first sentence there. I do have trouble with the next two. The board understands that the owners of homes housing such residents are similarly protected regardless of the fact that the sober home itself may be operated as an entity and as a commercial enterprise. This is something we need to discuss with.
Okay, so let's kind of flag that as a TBD.
And then the next statement here, the Safe Haven Sober House LLC versus Turner. This has nothing, this is just suits against Turner and 2 other town officials that they were discriminating against the sober home. Had nothing to do with anything else that I can read in there anyway.
Yeah,
It's just like suing you for discriminating against the use of the sober home and stuff. That's all. It had nothing to do with what's stated here.
So you're suggesting we strike it?
I say we strike it unless you see something in there that I don't.
Well, I think it's not in your quote, but I think it's paraphrasing. It's in your opinion, isn't it?
It's referring to a different case.
It's referring to the Turner case,
Right.
and that case. It's all about discrimination of Turner.
Yeah.
And there's 2 other individuals that are named.
The FHAA prohibits discrimination in housing based on handicapped.
It had nothing to do with handicaps.
No, I understand, but they're saying it.
Yeah.
You know, persons recovering from drug and alcohol addiction are considered to be handicapped persons under the statute, citing Peabody and some of those things.
Correct.
Owners of homes housing such residents are also protected under the FHAA. So I think it's that sentence. See Edmonds versus Oxford House, which is a Supreme Court case.
And it doesn't distinguish who those owners are.
That's just the sentence that the appeals court said.
It doesn't say that the owners have to be non-commercial.
I mean, this is where we could, if you want, I think to be helpful is to ask counsel, you know, do you have any other substantiation, justification, you know, where either the court or regulation or whatever it might be specifically calls out like a commercial enterprise as opposed to say like a nonprofit or something like that.
Like I said, I read through the section 3604, and it's always about he or the person.
There's also case law though.
I know.
Beyond
That's
So-
case law is another world all by itself. So
maybe instead of the word understands and say recognize, or recognize.
So, well, we can leave this point open for the moment. But I guess the next two sentences, we'll leave it open. Sorry, for discussion. Like I said, we're not reaching the end here. We're just trying to get farther down the road. All right. I'm just going to call this 8. And probably the one that starts with the properties in use.
Mhm.
So.
This is too emphatic for me.
Wordsmith it.
Well, it literally makes a declarative statement that the property is in use as a sober living home. We only have anecdotal information that that's the case. So I think that needs to be somehow, and I don't have the words right off the top of my head, but that's my sense about that statement.
Right. What we could say is,
So I'm sensing a change from the last meeting to this one about if the board believes or not that it's a sober home. And I think that is very important now to discuss, because it's up to the applicant to provide that proof that it is a sober home. The applicant in testimony said it was a sober home. So you need to determine if you believe that and the testimony of the abutters that it is a sober home. Because if you're not believing it's a sober home, then we need a whole other decision at this point. Because this talks about the use as a sober home. And if the board doesn't believe it's a sober home, then we need a whole other approach.
So the applicant has made his own determination as to what he believes is happening at that particular location.
In the documents submitted to the board, such as the cover letter, one of the sentences is from 2 decisions of the Stow Building Commissioner Zoning Enforcement Officer dated December 29th, partially denying request for zoning enforcement regarding the non-conforming use of 41 Birch Hill Road in Stow as a sober home. So that is from the applicant.
Right.
I don't know if anyone has, from the testimony, disagreed that it is a sober home.
That's his position, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's the abutter's position.
Correct.
It is the building commissioner's position that it's a sober home based on conversations that he had, even if they're not part of this board's records. And then in the emails that were sent to you at the last meeting, it references it as a sober home and shutting it down. So
I have no disagreement with what you're saying. My point of view is the only way that that's been declared, quote, and I don't even think I want to use the word substantially, but maybe indirectly as a sober home, is that it's been observed that way, right? There's no evidence that it is or it isn't.
correct.
Right?
But
The whole basis of this controversy revolves around it being a sober home.
Well, that's true. I'm not debating that. All I'm saying is there are opinions. They've been stated. There've been documents that have been articulated, but the actual use, no one's walked into that building, at least that I can say, and declare that this is literally what's happening, and here are the conditions that make it so. That's all I'm calling out there, right? This is very emphatic to me, and I don't particularly think that that's the proper way to state it.
In fact, Frank didn't say sober home. He said you're only allowed up to 5 people.
He actually didn't refer to sober.
Did he?
Yeah, he says, Zoning zoning bylaw clearly limits the number of persons who may live at the sober home, to 5.
And what he's saying is basically treat it the same.
Oh, I discussed the matter of the sober home at 41 Birch Hill Road.
Yeah.
With our town council.
Yeah, and when he gets into the 5 or more unrelated people, he's just referring to, to whether it's a sober home or not sober home, the zoning bylaw applies the same. But he's not indicating that it's not a sober home, and in fact, it is affiliated with a program in Acton that clearly works with people who have alcohol disability issues.
I mean, I think that's where I had sort of put that paragraph sort of at the top, saying like, based on the information that's been provided, we can say it appears, whether or not if we don't feel comfortable going so far as to say there's definitive evidence, definitive proof that it is, but I mean, most of the information, most of the things that we're dealing with is a lot of like, it appears, it seems to be, because I mean, I agree with you that I think we can, put some sort of caveat language, on it, which is also reflecting the fact that folks haven't participated to provide us with any direct evidence.
I mean, I would make, a connection between this home and the program in Acton, because I think that does tie in with its use. And, if you want to question whether it's being used as a sober home regardless, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's this whole controversy about it in the first place, if there isn't a thought that this is a sober home.
Maybe the language, the property is understood to be in use as a sober home versus.
I think Frank's issue is no matter, I don't know how many, what you're using it as, you can't have more than 5.
That's right.
That's
I mean,
all.
in some ways, the one particular road is that like, it almost doesn't, I forgot how to phrase it, but
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter if it's being a sober home or if it's 5 random people, it's like I said, it's 5 random people who, do it, like there is a path whereby which it does make it,
Because the law applies equally whether it's a sober home or just a residence anyway.
Right, which is why you can't make that statement that way.
yeah, no, that's what's
Yeah,
fine. Okay,
right.
So would you be comfortable saying something?
Just what we just said. I mean, it doesn't matter. If it could be A or B, either one could be true.
Yeah, we can, I know how we can get there. I think for this purpose, we could say, based on the information that's been provided, the property has been represented. I think that's how we can say it. It has been represented.
Presumed to be.
It has been represented, and there's evidence to indicate that the property is in use as a sober home.
Operating as,
Sure, okay.
okay, all right, fine.
So if you do that, and then the second sentence I would say is, we could say, under federal and state law, any individuals who may be living in a sober home are considered to have a disability.
Yeah.
Can we say that?
Well,
We already say that.
And not protected under
Yeah, that's already stated in the 6 and 7.
Yeah,
You don't need to repeat it. I don't think me.
I think it should be repeated.
I do like separating it from, saying like, we know essentially about the individuals, just saying instead.
That's how you get here.
Right, but the way he put it,
Yeah, no, I
Actually, the sentence the part that we were talking about before in the prior paragraph, or two paragraphs above, that I think Bernie is still looking for clarification from council on. It also talks about the owners are similarly protected. Owners of homes, accessory residents. We could build it into there to the extent that, depending on how that gets worked out, we could fold in the fact that like residents of a sober, because that's just a statement.
Correct.
Residents of a sober home, you know, are protected. That's how we do it. Okay. And for this one, we just keep it as the first sentence saying, you know, it has been represented. Okay. All right. So then we've got the family stuff. So the bylaw does not define family or single family. I did want to add in these two sentences. I guess it doesn't need to be said, but I'm going to say it anyways. Those section 3.2 of the bylaw does, says, we can say the bylaw does not define family or single family. Section 3.2 of the bylaw does state, quote, the residential district is intended as a district for typical rural single family residential and non-commercial uses. And the table of principal uses does use the term, quote, single family dwelling. I just wanted to like see if we can tie it, that even though there's no definition of family, family and dwelling, there seems to be a tie there. The other interesting, the other thing I was going to say was, it's interesting is that there is a this is what happens when you reread stuff. The bylaw defines multi-family dwelling as a building that basically has more than one dwelling unit. The implication being that
Each one.
that a dwelling with one dwelling unit is for one family as opposed to multifamily. So might be worth adding that as a definition just to show the contrast.
I think I like that.
Yeah. I'm assuming that we don't have any issues with the parts where we're saying what how dwelling is defined and dwelling unit is defined. It's just a statement. Those are just statements. Are we good with that? Okay. All right, so let's jump down to, I guess what's on this draft is number 12. A single family dwelling use in the town is a dwelling use as it's a single dwelling unit, and it isn't allowed use in the residential district. Any concerns with that?
I guess I'm not entirely sure why we're stating it.
Why we're saying that?
Yeah,
Number 12.
yeah.
Dwelling use in the town is a dwelling use as a single dwelling. This is a quote straight out of the
But maybe if I think about it in terms of like a multi,
number
it makes sense.
12 or Robin's initials.
A single family dwelling in the town is a dwelling, or a single family dwelling use in the town is a dwelling. Use as a single dwelling unit is a dwelling.
I'm just trying to think about what it adds.
I think it's the purpose is to try to establish the definition of dwelling unit within the decision. So if it's not a boarding house, then it needs to be something else.
I mean, I'm okay with that.
So the building commissioner actually instantiated that as a word or as part of his decision. He actually introduced, or maybe not introduced, but declared that's the appropriate wording.
That's right from the bylaw.
Is it?
Yeah, so
All right, so we'll keep that. The bylaw defines rooming and boarding house. All right, so I'm guessing that we're good with 13, that's a straight definition.
Yeah, as long as it's a good copy of the right?
Same with 14.
Yeah,
So number 14, I understand this differently than I feel like I'm hearing people. When I read this as, so when it says it's also occupied as a private residence,
Mhm.
I essentially think of that as the dwelling unit. So there's your 5 unrelated people, and that the boarding house can have 2 additional ones on top of that. So I read that as 7.
You have 2 unrelated persons living there besides the owner.
Besides the private residence, which is essentially up to 5 unrelated people. Because I read a boarding house as it's more than a single family. It's somehow functioning.
Can you have a family? Say, wife, husband, or 2 lovers and some kids, some of them adopted, plus 5 unrelated people?
As a boarding house, that's what I think a boarding house is. So that's what I
I
read
don't
it.
think that's what was intended, so.
So that's so I get confused because otherwise aren't we saying a boarding house isn't allowed even to free with a single family? Or, sorry, I should say dwelling unit, just to keep consistent there.
Yeah, I guess the question is like, why is a boarding house more restrictive than a dwelling with, say, 5 unrelated people?
Yeah, like that doesn't make sense to me. And then what makes sense is they're limiting, you can board kind of beyond your family use. You can board only 2. Boarding house is almost like it goes into business. It's additional.
Yeah, because it's the owner of the house who's, running an operation.
So the operation beyond your private residence, your dwelling unit is limited to 2, is the way I read that. So then I would think a boarding house gives them to 7. Their private residence 5. But that,
Well, no,
it's no constraint on private residence.
there is 5 under, well,
No.
I'm reading private residence as dwelling unit.
So in other words, you're reading it like it's a hybrid of both. In other words, you could have
I
a
don't
boarding
think that-
house
I don't think that-
with a dwelling residence. In other words, you could have the 5 unrelated people
Well, the other-
plus 2 boarders.
Right, well, the other part would be you're limiting it, if you're reading it as there's only allowing 2, why would anyone go to be a boarding house? Because,
You might as well have a residence with 5 unrelated people.
yeah, like it would be more restrictive.
So is this actually a literal quote from the bylaw?
Mm-hmm.
And how does it help or hurt? Well, I'm just trying to do here.
I mean, well, conceptually, it's an interesting point. Ultimately,
Doesn't make any
I don't think it makes a difference because there's absolutely no evidence that the owner lives in the house.
Well, this is true, but it does make it interesting if he's capping it at 5, because that would be if he's saying it's a boarding house, but then treating it like a dwelling unit.
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying.
I could have the owner of the house as one of his managers sell it to the manager to run the place.
But that's,
And then he can have his family plus 2 others. His family can be
And his family can be 5 unrelated.
people.
we are so down the rabbit hole.
I know.
You know what I mean?
It's
So
not very clear, it's
Mr.
not well
Diamond, like,
defined. No one thought this would have the
He
same
can
problem.
have 2 boarders plus the.
Maria, I promise we will have a dwelling versus boarding house item on the agenda at some future slow meeting to talk on the philosophical aspects of the bylaw and whether or not there's an ambiguity that's existing there.
I mean, the interesting thing is boarding houses really don't exist anymore.
Oh, okay. I lived in one for a while, but that was a long time
I know
ago.
that, I figured that was what I mean. My dad did too at some point. It came from over.
Okay. Point taken. that being said, hold on. What number was it?
Down to 15.
What was that, 14?
We did 14, now we're on 15.
Okay, so let's turn to 15.
I have a problem with this. I mean, it says the bylaw does not define transient, but the board interprets it. Well, how are we interpreting it if the bylaw doesn't define it? I mean, there should be a basis for it anyway.
So this one for me with the Airbnb stuff almost graduates to just the way the state handles it. Like your tax different, less than 30 days is considered transient.
State law does that?
Yeah.
For your
Well, we run into Airbnb and we have to have a whole separate thing to be taxed separately and approved over 30 days and all this. So
Oh, that kind of defines it to force, 30 days.
But what is it defining it under?
that I don't know.
Transient? Because it could be for a tax purpose.
It
and
is just tax purpose, yeah.
And we may not have adopted that local tax
Oh.
thing, so we can't just,
Oh, no, we don't get out of it.
is it?
No, the town,
Not you.
Oh, I see,
Like,
yeah,
the
the
town of
state,
Stow may
I
not have
see.
adopted a separate tax structure for Airbnb rentals.
a chance for more revenue for the town of Stow.
Yeah.
Please, God.
So here's a thought. We don't need to say this is the definition, but what we could say is, at the very least, we believe that transient, at a minimum, is X. Like, one could argue that 90 days is transient. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Whether that's true or not, maybe that's gray, and that's for other people to decide. The interesting question, so. I think we can agree the bylaw does not define transient. That's a factual statement. There's no definition for it.
Maybe we could say it's akin to a short-term rental, but I don't know if we should say, for example, 30 days, because where are we coming up with 30 days? Maybe just leave it as a short-term rental and leave it at that, open to interpretation.
Well, my only concern about a short-term rental is I would argue 6 months is a short-term rental.
Like, what's short term?
Yeah,
Short-term rental, that's a summer,
Could be 90 days, yeah, right.
Well, that's right, it's open to interpretation.
that's right. That's why I'm wondering whether there's like a certain number that you could say, no matter what, under this is definitely transient.
And the thing that really gets you is they can go ahead and register to vote the first day and move into town.
Even so what? But that doesn't mean anything.
I would just leave it open to interpretation, because I don't know that there is a concrete, number that you can actually.
So then you're somehow, I guess, challenging the fact that the board can't interpret that in such a way.
Right,
Why?
as 30 days, because why 30 days? Why not 10 days? Why
But
not
why
45?
can't we interpret it as 30? Well, what's restrict, we have some authority to do that.
But where are we coming up with 30?
We have a consensus that we think that that's what it was.
Well, I could say, the board could say that the sky is, I don't know, whatever color it isn't.
I think that
The board could decide it.
the question-
So,
I think when there's a term that's undefined, I think we have the authority to render what we believe is our reasonable interpretation. And the question is, how easily could that be challenged? If we said, we believe transient is anything less than 2 years, I mean, we could say that, but I think someone could drive, someone could drive a truck through that. That's why I'm wondering,
well, the thing is, if you're gonna say 30, then come up with a basis of where you came up with the number 30.
I guess, just based on, for me personally, I would say that, and I think the number could be very fluid, but I think if someone says, I'm living in a place for less than a month, and then I'm gonna move someplace on, like, I don't believe I don't think you can attach a level of permanence to that, frankly, I think the number could be higher, but I feel, I have a comfort level at a month, I probably would have a comfort level at 2, maybe even 3. But I don't think we need to go there.
your standard leases also on, your, it's like 30 days notice. Or, so that,
Oh, in terms of a rental
yeah,
time.
yeah.
Yeah. But if you're living in a place for less than a month, then it's likely that you're already having to look for your next place to where you're gonna live. You know what I mean? I mean, think about just normal living in terms of like trying to find a rental and moving and all that
Couch
kind of stuff.
surfing, I think is the term.
Yeah, that's right. But that would be the epitome of the definition of someone who's transient, like they're moving around,
All right, so if you base it on like a rental unit, like where we said, okay, then okay, so that's a basis for 30 days.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to.
Yeah, no. I know it's a fair question.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And please.
I just have a question for Valerie, actually. We allow short-term rentals, correct?
Silent on it.
So it's
I
We're
think
silent on
that
it.
on 15 and 16, I'm now just catching, I kept rereading it. It says that short-term rental use, for example, 30 days or less, which is not permitted in the residential district. I don't believe that to be correct, unless I'm misinterpreting the silence.
I mean, typically, it is true, like, if it's not in the zoning, it's not allowed, but with this one, I think it's because it could be, under a general bylaw or a Board of Health regulation.
I think, if I can jump in, sorry. I think it's just the way it's been written. I think what this is trying to say is that transient is not permitted in the residential district. It's not the phrase short term. So I think maybe we just rework the sentence.
And we consider transit.
Yeah, which means, bylaws not provide transient, but work, the bylaw does not define transient, comma, which is not permitted in the residential district. I mean, I think we have to rewrite it, I think. But I think it's more that transient is not permitted in the residential district. That term as opposed to short-term rental.
I don't know that the bylaw defines, I mean, it doesn't talk about transient uses.
No, but if you look at if you look at all the uses available in the residential district, which use is transient? I don't know, by the way, it's not like I've cross-checked,
Maybe it would be better to say short-term rental of less than 30 days based on a standard rental unit or rental term, based on a standard rental term.
Okay, why don't we, so just to kind of keep thinking, why don't we just flag that as, that we might need to rework it? I think we're in agreement about the concept, but I think we want to rework it just to make sure it's accurate. Okay, that's good flag. All right, sorry, 16.
We use the term temporary occupancy
Sorry, where?
under hotel definitions. Also under dwellings, transient occupancy.
Actually, in 16, it does say short-term rental, it doesn't say transient. It uses the term short-term rental.
I think he's in the bylaw.
And the reality is bed and breakfast home is available in a residential district. I would say bed and breakfast is probably the epitome of the transient, right? So,
I think my point earlier was that it's not defined.
so I think also I think we can, maybe we just cut the, which is not permitted in the residential district. I don't think, and frankly, I don't know if it adds anything, so I think it's intentional. Okay, 16.
Oh yeah, that's where I was referencing that it does say short-term rental in 16.
this one question, because I feel like we had a letter saying that a boarding house would require a change of use, correct?
That was related to the building code, which is not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same, but it's parallel, correct? It's where, like zoning,
Zoning and building code, they're generally parallel. But there's instances like the 56 Harvard Road dance studio. If they were to sell or serve alcohol, it would be considered a nightclub under building code, even though we would not consider it that from a zoning perspective. We would say it was a dance class, dance studio. So there's instances like that where very specific things about use come into play with building code, but not zoning.
Okay. So for 16, I'm actually okay with the way it's phrased, except for the part where it says, as it is, so long as it's not being used akin to a short-term rental. I think what we want to say there is, so long as the individuals in the sober home, so long as it's not being used for transient occupancy, because that goes back to the definition of dwelling. Yeah, that works. It ties it more closely to the definition.
You could say the board finds that a sober home may be operated on a property consistent with the definition.
Yeah, we don't actually need it. Yeah, we can
I
just say
don't know
consider.
if you, does the board want to talk about, want more emphasis on the transient use component or less?
I mean, you're right. We don't do we need to we didn't need to restate it. It's already in the definition.
it also seems like something that I guess it's hard to have much meaning for it if it's not defined.
I guess the idea is that if it's in the definition already, and we say you can do it as long as it's consistent with the definition, we don't need to then repeat what the definition is.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think the way you phrase it is good. Yeah. Basically, the protection of the board finds that a sober home may be operated on the property so long as it is being used consistent with the definition of and allowances for either a dwelling unit or boarding houses or living houses.
I think the only one there that talks about length of stay is the definition of boarding house and rooming house.
The definition of dwelling.
Right, maybe I'm wrong here. I don't think the definition of dwelling unit talks about length of stay.
Dwelling unit says
Dwelling unit doesn't. The dwelling unit isn't a dwelling.
I just say dwelling unit because it's in number 16.
but we also reference dwelling further in the decision or earlier in the decision, and that's my interpretation is the overall structure, and the dwelling unit is an individual component, or in some cases,
Which for the purposes of a single family house is one and the same.
Right.
Should we change it to dwelling?
I think if we state earlier that a single family dwelling use in the town
Mm-hmm.
is a dwelling in use as a single dwelling unit. and is an allowed use in the residential district.
I mean, did we just simply say exactly what we've been saying? That for the purpose of a single family home, like a dwelling and a dwelling unit are one and the same?
Yes. Should we add that earlier in the decision?
Back in the definitions part, maybe? I mean, am I wrong? I mean, no, please, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be monopolizing this, okay. You know,
One and the same.
I mean, the point is that if it's a dwelling with like 7 apartments, you get 7 dwelling units in one dwelling. But, you know, the house that I live in with my family is a dwelling and it's a dwelling unit.
Correct.
It's just the same, it's one and the same. Right, so I think we just come out and say it.
Yeah, but I'll add in some language about that connection.
That's right. Yeah, because that way later on, I think we can stick to one term and then it's one and the same. Yeah.
Now, I get a little, like, I don't see the boarding houses the same as the dwelling unit though.
I think at this point in the decision, where we're going through, we're saying it could be one or the other. The board hasn't yet made that determination in the findings that it is a dwelling unit or a boarding house.
And
I
it
think
would be
that's later on in the decision.
it would be the owner that would need to initiate a change, correct?
A change in use would be initiated by the owner, yes.
Should we state just at the beginning that, since we're only considering one house, it is a dwelling and a dwelling unit?
Yeah, I think it's,
Dwelling unit, okay.
yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely, just say it right up front.
Right,
You know,
because if we had multiple houses next to each other, that's a dwelling unit with 2 developments. And we're just talking about one dwelling or a dwelling.
okay, yeah, you could do the, yeah.
Does number 18 satisfy that?
Don't jump ahead.
You're reading ahead.
Yeah, but I think I think frankly, I think just the way it reads, I think the earlier we put it, it'll just kind of say it right up front and we put it within the definitions section or somewhere up top, you know.
Now, for me, 18 completely goes against what the,
Okay, well, hold on, we skipped 17, so.
Okay.
Did we close on 16?
I think we're closing 16.
Okay.
So I would change, made every effort to inform the owner of the property.
Correct.
Of this appeal and believe that the owner was aware of the appeal.
Is it was or is? Is this, what person are we, tense are we talking here?
Has been.
Okay.
I mean, it's over time. Is and has been.
Either way.
Yeah.
has been.
Okay. The owner did not attend. Oh, you already had this. I'm sorry, I wrote this in earlier. Did not attend any of the public hearings or provide any information directly to the board, which made the board's review of the matter more difficult.
So that sentence reads operator, not owner.
Well, first of all, no, I'm saying I would change operator owner.
Yeah, okay.
After review, how about and decision of the matter are difficult? Review and decision.
It might be nice to both in there, the owner or the operator.
Well, no, I
We're
actually
only doing the owner.
no, yeah. If we changed it, I would suggest the owner or any representative of the owner. I mean, they could have had a lawyer show up or someone say, I'm speaking on behalf of the owner. We have that all, you know, we have architects and contractors all the time. So maybe the owner, neither the owner nor any representative of the owner. We can do that. So query, it said, which made the board's review of the matter more difficult. Do we need to say it?
Because we're constantly getting confused about what we're talking about here, yeah.
No, I know. I'm trying to figure out what the add, like, what the value add is of it, other than the fact that we're expressing our frustration.
Well, we don't have to add it.
I mean, what do you think?
You can get rid of it.
Okay, all right, so we'll do a period at the end of directly to the board.
Or you could say something about lack of information made the board's review of the matter more difficult,
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's
or
like,
take it out.
I would just take it out,
Okay,
but whether
take it
the
out.
decision is easy or hard, we're still gonna make it.
You do?
The only other thing I would change is we could, if we wanted to, indicate that efforts were made to speak to the owner, or, you know, even before the appeal, right? When was the appeal filed? December?
December.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Frank's letter was after Thanksgiving, you know? I don't know if we need to mention that or not.
No, I think we got every effort here.
Okay. All right, 18. Now, we're 18. Based on the information. Okay, first sentence. How do we feel?
Did the board find or found?
Or fines?
Well, these are findings.
Okay. Yeah, so okay, fines.
So I feel like this is different than what the building commissioner said. This is not being used as a rooming or boarding house.
I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I don't know what to do with that sentence that's in there, because it seems to,
Kind of finish it up.
it's, you know what I mean? I don't. I'm not trying to ignore it, you know?
But then we took that sentence and reversed it and put it here.
Well, here again, we don't have any evidence for that statement. You can't document that.
Well, actually, I would disagree with that,
Okay, that's okay. How do we know?
because the owner is an LLC, and an LLC cannot occupy property.
Let me read it then with that context.
I'm just gonna be part of that. You know, it can own a property, but if it's owner occupied, I'm putting value on the word occupy. A company cannot occupy a building. Its employees can occupy it. It can have equipment there and all that kind of stuff, but occupy indicates physically existing in a space.
Should we say that?
Well, the
Because that-
LLC cannot, but people who are part of the LLC, I would think could.
I would agree with that, but they are not, but they don't own it,
They're not the
Right.
owners.
you know,
They,
like,
they can represent the owner, but they're not the
like,
owner.
like my company owns the building and I'm an employee of the company in the building. But like, I'm not the company that's occupying the building. The building's occupied by the employees.
Like, well, the person uses it for his, leases a house for himself. He leases it from the owner. What privileges does he have?
I would argue that, you know, the LLC owns it and he might be a manager, he might be the owner of the owner. You know, that gets a little confusing, you know,
Or even the president of the LLC. You know, he could.
it's an officer.
Right,
Not,
it's not the LLC.
Yeah. I also think it's also it's in the record that the LLC has an address in Florida.
oh, in this case, yeah.
You know, it's registered in Delaware, right? The Delaware LLC, the Delaware LLC, the representative of the owner of the owner, it's a Florida address, that's in the record. So I'm comfortable with that. So what we could say is, based on the information available to the board finds that the property is not owner occupied. I mean, do we say, and therefore cannot be used?
Yes.
Can we go further and say that?
Cannot be used.
Therefore cannot be
Yes.
used, or does not satisfy the,
By all requirements.
yeah,
The owner.
That would
Say
make
it does
more.
not
yeah,
meet the requirements of the bylaw.
perfect.
Cannot be used by what?
Does not meet the,
The bylaw requirements to be used as a boarding house or rooming house.
Yeah.
Because it has to
Oh,
be
because the owner has.
good,
I like the owner operated also. It doesn't even reach that.
I don't think we need to say it, because it's not in the definition.
Alright.
You know, your point's well taken, you know. All right, for that reason, the board focused its analysis on whether or not I would say on whether or not the property is operating in a dwelling as a single dwelling unit, which is allowed in the resident, I think it's
Right.
residential, right? Residential district.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so 19. It's true. I think that's true. Are we good with 19? I mean, based on the following description of the building, which is in the record, I think we're good with that. Okay. 20. Yeah, what's the burden of proving existence of a zoning violation?
Is that correct? Wouldn't that be the town?
It's the app.
No, the applicant.
No, it's the applicant.
Whoever submits the appeal has the burden of proof. I mean, I was being technical saying it's got the burden to prove that the building commissioner is wrong, right? Isn't that technically the appeal? I mean,
It's partially that, but
Yeah.
also
right.
partially saying like, this is why.
This is why he goes to the yeah. Based on the testimony and documentation submitted by the applicant. This is a small thing, but I'm guessing that theoretically information provided by the public is not testimony. Oh, comments?
I would consider a testimony.
Okay, no, I'm fine with it.
I was sworn.
I mean, based on, can we change testimony to state representations or statements? I think that's a better way of putting it.
Statement by members of the public.
Yeah. I would say there is uncertainty about the precise number of individuals residing at the property.
How does that change it?
Only because I think there's been information about generally how many people are living there, but whether it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11, that's why I say the precise number. All right, so what do you think about the next sentence? The one that begins with the red line version, although there was speculation.
By whom?
We don't have the red line version.
Oh, I just gave them a simplified version without the red lines.
Oh, sorry.
You got a cheat sheet.
So, what's just the
You
change?
got the cliff notes.
Yeah.
We don't.
Okay, sorry. Anyway, the sentence that begins with although there was speculation.
By
So there was speculation by.
who?
Well, we don't know what's there.
Oh, I'm guessing. By everybody.
Okay.
I didn't write that part. I'm not saying you have to agree with it.
I'm assuming it means the applicant and the public that provided statements
okay.
for the board, because it's part of that paragraph.
I guess this is where I start, because the only one who could get proof of these things would be the town, correct? Like the Board of Health or
The owner.
The owner,
the owner, right?
the building commission.
Building commissioner, which I think I'm thinking of as the town. um, which where I was.
We have no official data taken by the building commissioner or anybody else on what the traffic is in and out of the home.
That's not what the sentence says, though. The sentence goes beyond that. Okay, no. I agree with that. I agree with your sentence.
We don't even know if the persons have any disability. They're just people going in and out.
But that's all. That's all.
Yeah, that's all it says.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay, yeah.
So what about the neighbor said? I see more than 5 people there.
There is uncertainty about the number of individuals.
No, I'm talking about the net, the next
9
part.
beds say something. But we weren't there to count the beds either, so it's just,
No,
again,
but-
that's
No, but there's
an
information.
observation.
Yeah, there's information on the record about it.
They may slip one in that we didn't know about, or
I may have gotten rid of some.
you know nothing about what's going
Maybe
on.
I'm more.
I think that's where I'm thinking it's only the town that can really substantiate those things.
Well, earlier in that paragraph, it says the applicant has the burden of proof.
So I guess I'm still going back to being like that, like. where
So
is
did the
that?
applicant show information from the town? If that's,
Or
I would be interested, yeah. Sure, others.
Kind of hard when people are very secretive.
the question you have to ask yourself is there enough information based on what's been said and what has been observed to believe?
There's more than 5 people living in the house.
Yeah.
Yes.
In my opinion, from like a standard perspective, we have the authority, if we so choose, to say yes. We don't need to say, because we've physically seen 6 people, we have a picture, we've got it in writing, it's been attested to, whatever. Obviously, that would be like the gold standard, as opposed to there's a picture of 1 person, therefore it's a gold standard of none. I think it comes down to there's circumstantial evidence that there may have been, during this time period, more than 5 people living there. The question is there enough to be able to say that or not?
I think so.
I don't think so.
I don't.
I think the answer is yes. My opinion is yes, but you have to take the word credible out, because if we're making that presumption, then it somehow is credible. And then what it says, no credible information.
Oh,
So if we believe that, and we've brought ourselves to think that that's really the case, then there's some credibility to what has been stated.
no, agreed. Of course. Yeah. It's not just based on.
If you change it to sufficient, you know, I don't have a problem with changing the word. The concern I have is, it's not a matter of not believing what's been observed. I think somebody made a comment, I'll take a lie detector.
Yeah.
And I'm not questioning that
Oh,
person.
no, I understand. Of course not. Oh, no,
I think that person saw something. I wouldn't doubt his veracity and honesty about it. The issue is, what can we use as a legal basis? And the legal basis has to be the town, which has to be primarily the building commissioner as the enforcement officer. And what I want as a mechanism of that is, I would want the building commissioner to make some periodic, unannounced visits, you know, to the house to see what's going on. I'll tell people when he's coming, come different parts of the day, different unpredictable days of the week. And that to me would be a way of trying to determine what's going on.
Or announced.
I don't think we can do unannounced visits without a warrant.
That brings up a whole bunch of
Yeah,
Use your words.
announced is the way, but that would, to me,
my authority is chairs.
So he's got to get
Attention.
Okay.
but he can arrange.
He can
make-
arrange or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, a request. eh,
I should have known that. Okay. Yeah, like the Board of Assessors, for example, we can't just go in unannounced.
Right.
We announce. Yeah.
I'm not letting you in my home, that's for sure.
Point well taken.
But, and I think it's an important thing to point out, like,
It's a double-edged sword.
I don't think the town should or does, or maybe even could ever go in of its own accord. You know, just
I think
when in a butter or somebody,
I think we can. I think what
When is
more
it?
information we could have, or what ways that we could find this out, isn't necessarily relevant to the question. The question is just, we have information that's been provided during the public hearings, we've got documentation from the applicant, we've got public comments that have been made, you know, is there enough to say? I agree that there's not enough to say, like, we know for a fact, there's definitive proof that there's more than 5 people living there. I think that's too far to go. I think this as drafted goes too far in the other direction, saying that there's no credible information as to how many people are living there. I personally think that there is credible information about how many people, you know, at the very least, may have been living there at one time. You know, the question is, do we feel comfortable saying something in the middle? Is that, you know?
Again, I would say sufficient. That would be the word. I wouldn't use the word credible because that gets into the question of, you know, whether you believe people or not. You know, I'm not questioning people's honesty. I would just say sufficient.
Can you say that in a sentence?
Yeah. I switched the words. Instead of the word credible, I'd say there isn't sufficient information. Instead of saying no credible, just say there isn't sufficient information.
What if we, I'm sorry, let's go ahead.
There's credible information to indicate that more than 5 individuals are residing on the property.
That goes on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
One is saying no credible, the other is saying credible.
That's
I'm just
credible.
trying to find something in the middle and say sufficient.
Well,
What was the synonym that we used for testimony?
statements or representations, I think. The board acknowledges that there have been statements and observations that indicate more than 5 people have been
That
living on the property,
the capacity was exceeded.
that more than 5 people have been living on the property. Period. I was gonna say like at times, you know, it's a fluid situation, you know, but I think if we say have been, we're not saying that they currently are, we don't know, you know.
Yeah.
Maria, what do you think? Sorry to clarify.
yeah, that sounds good.
Statements have been made. Well, statements have been made. I won't deny that. Whether that's sufficient to do anything. is another
You can mull it over.
On that, could the board just say that, just a simple finding of there is information statement said about more than 5 people living at a property, period. And then in the decision, or later on, when you do the vote, you can have the building commissioner do some action about making sure that there are, or getting definitive proof. So before just saying we think there are, making that
We can just
assumption that there are more than 5.
acknowledge the representations and the observations that have been made.
Yes.
I'm fine with that. You know, we draft it up that way, so because.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, based on the statements, observations. Yeah.
Do you need that last sentence there?
Well, hold on, we're not done with that
Oh,
sentence.
sorry.
No, it's okay. We'll get back to it. Because that sentence that we've been focused on focuses on the number of individuals and how long they've been residing at the property.
Right.
So we might have a path forward on the number, but then it brings up the question of how long they're residing there. I think based on the information that we've had, we have no documentation at all as to what they may or may not be agreeing to. Okay? There have been observations of people coming and going. And at least based on the second public hearing, the neighbor indicated that based on his observations, it seems to be whenever he looks in the house and sees the people there, they seem to be new and different people relatively
Frequent.
Thank you. Is there any other information or evidence that people recall that had been provided during the public hearing, documentation that deals with the length of time, beyond sort of generalizations about how sober homes typically operate and how the business how the business represents normally does things?
Well, there was some discussion or commentary about the short term of visits, people coming and going in different hours of the in the 24-hour clock, but
Can you say anything?
I think Andy just made a good point where they did say that there was people constantly coming through, but there's also guests coming over. So how can you really tell?
Or they could
They could be guests. We don't even know
Yeah.
that.
You basically gotta put a camera up and watch it 24 hours to see what's going in and out. And patterns and facts, people come and go.
I think what we could do is the part that
look at numbers, look at the bakery.
the part you're going to draft about sort of the, I think we can do it for both of those based on like what representations and observations have been made. We can do it for both the number of people and the length of time. I think we can solve it that way. Okay. The next sentence.
Is it important to include some of the ancillary traffic that's associated with that, like the DoorDash people and any of those other activities?
We don't restrict that any place in the bylaw.
Well, no, but it's about the transient traffic in and out of the place.
I don't think there's.
No.
I think we can include what's been represented.
Okay.
I think that's.
Yeah. We don't restrict deliveries to houses.
Do you think this is an example of how culture is kind of moving in zoning? We have to think about it, because for instance, DoorDash is, if our single unit is built around a shared kitchen, DoorDash is a new thing that's.
Oh no, I mean you could say the same thing about like Amazon packages. You came to my house today, there were 4 boxes of varying sizes sitting on my stoop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just this idea of, yeah, it's just an interesting thing to think about.
All right, well, let's think about if we want to include that. We can go back through some of the minutes that have been said or based on the videos. If you think it's worth adding, we'll put that in there, so we'll flag that. All right, the last sentence you're going to say, no information about the relationship between the individuals residing at the property is provided to the board. All right, that's the one you were focusing on?
Yeah, I don't know, where does that,
We'll go to the
why is it
unrelated,
relevant?
goes to the unrelated piece of the definition of dwelling. I think that's the reason why it was in there.
Okay.
So there's a few ways to think about this, not to throw this out there. On the one hand, query this question of like, do you really know it's a sober home? Let's just play this one out. If that's the case, that actually sort of increases the likelihood that these people could be related. I mean, or at least it you know, the irony being that if it is operating as a sober home, the likelihood that they're related, you know, that it's sober home for siblings, I think is less likely. Now I understand that I'm making a generalization here, but I just thought to say that.
Theoretically, there could be like a couple brothers.
I mean, they could, of course. That's right. But one would assume, you know, that like, you know, the way a sober home. Again, this is a pure generalization. I'm not saying this is
That's an
specific.
assumption.
Exactly. But
Do we really care?
you know,
Do we care about the relationship?
what goes on?
It'll be changing.
What's that?
It'll be changing on. Sometimes we maybe get brothers in there, but some other times they're not related at all. I mean, do we really care what the relationship may be? Husband and wife may be.
That's why because it goes to the dwelling issue. The definition is five unrelated people.
Yeah,
So if they become
So if you got,
related, you can.
If you had
increase
17
the-
siblings, they can all live together.
or if you have 6 people and 2 of them are brothers, it's okay to have 6 people.
I mean, let's not get in there. I mean, we can think about it again. We don't make decisions tonight per se. I'm inclined to keep it in there because it is. I mean, I might actually flip it around and just say, you know, there is no definitive evidence indicating the relationship of the people who reside in the home. I mean, that is true.
Or even the qualifications of the people.
What do you mean the qualifications?
Are they actually dependent on this treatment?
Oh, right. Like, is it a sober home, but they're actually like, they're also renting out 3 rooms to random people just for the sake of it. I mean, that is true, you know.
Yeah, no, very much.
I mean, I wonder, could you go more broad and say there's no definitive evidence with respect to the characteristics of the individuals that they. Is that too far?
I don't think saying characteristics of individuals.
Yeah, that's,
But I
yeah.
think
That gets into.
All right, keep the sentence for right now. Maybe, like I said, I might want to add the word definitive or.
No indication that the individuals there are
Related.
no, I don't care about it. That they are disabled. We don't know what they put in there.
Well, we can't say there's no indication because if they are operating a sober home, then presumably some people they're
So
sober home.
we don't know what their policy is. So.
Well, if it's not a sober home,
That's
I'm being picky. I mean,
That's the implied.
that's right. That's why I was pushing back on this no indication. Like, well, actually, there's an
Yeah,
indication,
right.
you know.
That's implied who the patients are. But there's no, again, there's no way to validate it one way or the other.
Yeah, I was want to say there's no validated evidence.
They're
That's right.
they're not controlled at all. They're not controlled at all by the state or anybody.
Right, that's it. Yeah. All right, so let's just flag that sentence. Yep. Okay. We're at 21.
Good. Yeah.
Do we need? Is that typical in a finding where we actually reciting like case law?
we can.
I'm not denying by the quote.
There are other times when the board has used case law in its decisions.
I would strongly recommend it if we're making a statement and we have case law to support it.
The only change I would make in 21 is instead of saying the court found, I would say the court concluded or held. Either held or concluded. 22.
Do we want to say that includes the management? It's not the manager plus 5, it's, because he's unrelated, that person's unrelated also.
Yeah, I think
That's a fair point.
oh, really?
Or not, wait, I'm sorry. Wait, I was speaking without actually listening to what you said. What did you say, Julie?
I feel like I mean, it's just they're unrelated regardless, right? Like if they live there.
I mean, for what it's worth,
Could it say then 5 unrelated individuals total may similarly live together in a sober living home?
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I understand, you're saying,
Right.
this implies that the individuals are the quote residents.
Right,
But the reality is, we're just talking about human beings
Right.
in the
Right.
building.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay,
physical.
yeah, I
noses.
think total, I think that's a good add. Okay, 23. Can we just say that the, can we just start 23 by saying in the bylaw? I know it's implied, but. Actually, I think we turned wrong, and it also requires that the individuals live together as a single housekeeping unit. That's my proposal.
So do we use the convention in other places where we actually just state the bylaw?
I mean, we have some definitions someplace, right?
Well, yeah, like for
We
example,
always do it.
I mean, we're repeating it, because if you go back to paragraph 11, it says it back there.
well, I know, but if you go back, there are numerous points here, we say the bylaw, the bylaw, the
Oh.
bylaw. That convention, as we state the bylaw, is all I'm saying, is that the convention that we
Oh.
want to apply here?
I mean, I'm fine with that.
That's all, just
Oh,
because.
okay. No, yeah, I agree with this, yeah.
say we received information on representing both sides.
All right, let's break this down. The term single housekeeping unit is not defined in the bylaw. It's true. That is true. I'm sort of inclined to say, can we just put a period there?
Yeah.
Make that a single sentence. Okay. The board interprets that to mean any type of communal or congregate living, including where, for example, residents share common spaces, such as a kitchen or a living room. I don't like the example.
You mean about television? Or am I skipping?
No, I think we need to read this, right?
Further up.
Yeah, I would put that up there. Residents share common space, just a kitchen or a living room. I mean,
I believe it's a kitchen or a bathroom.
no, but I think my point is that like, I think that goes too far in terms of like a single, I think that's too low of a bar, what a single housekeeping unit is. I mean, you could have 5 people living together that literally do not interact with each other and happen to share a kitchen. You know what I mean? Or sitting in a room, you know, one person's watching TV, the other person's reading a book, doesn't mean that they're like essentially a single housekeeping unit, a family. I'm not saying that I can tell you what the definition is, but I think this goes too low. You know?
Do we really need to even get into this issue? I mean, the bylaw just says, you know, no more than 5 unrelated individuals. It doesn't say they have to be a housekeeping unit or communal or anything. It just says, what, 5 people? You know?
Well, if you're under 5 people and you're not a single housekeeping unit, then that would be against the bylaw.
If you're not a single housekeeping unit, or because you become.
You have to be living together as a single housekeeping unit, but not more than 5.
So it has to be a single housekeeping unit, otherwise it's a boarding house, is that the?
Then it becomes, that's right,
Something else, yeah.
that's right. Or one of the other various, you know, uses in the relationship, whatever that might be.
See, I think this is an example of where, like when I think things through, I think times, like as things are changing, and then I question. So, you know, historically, especially in like you know, if you're not in an urban area,
Yep.
The assumption is you have to use the kitchen. You know, like the zoning historically based.
Well, that's right, you don't have to, that's right, you know.
Well, no, you would have to. How are you gonna eat?
Oh, well, you're right.
I think my point being is when they historically are saying single housekeeping unit, and then that's something that's changing now, that 5 people can live in a house and can call in dinner.
That's the way they're running now. They bring the food to them.
Exactly, it's like a different thing that.
Costs an Uber, it doesn't cost them
Well,
anything.
that's some nuclear families too.
Well, no, but I mean, exactly, but that's a change
Yeah.
in kind of how, that isn't necessary. I'm just
Not
noting
necessary, yeah,
that it's a complication that's coming in. That's an interesting,
yeah. You know, the kind of world we're living in, lifestyle we're living in, a lot of people don't have a dinner together anymore.
right, and it's a different thing than kind of the ability historically.
I was just gonna say that even a family could each get. to a house.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, exactly.
I have teenagers, it happens.
But the interesting part is I think historically when they were
Dysfunctional family.
what is it?
I'm sorry. Shouldn't have done that.
In some ways, I think the zoning was built on those relationships that are something that we don't necessarily need anymore, but we do need. Does that make sense?
Good question.
Right.
What are we trying to accomplish by making this statement?
I believe the purpose would be that if you're like looking at the definition of dwelling, that to the extent that
Because it's a residence of no more than 500
yeah,
people as opposed to
the way you determine if the use is appropriate under the zoning bylaw is either you've got more than 5 people, five unrelated people who are living together,
Mhm.
or if there's under 5 unrelated people living, 5 or less unrelated people living together, that they're doing so as a single housekeeping unit. If there's 4 unrelated people living together and they're all dispersed and doing whatever their own thing is, and they're not sharing anything, they're not living as a unit, whatever, then that's also a violation.
In other words, they're renting a room and that's it. They don't share anything.
I think I like his example because it brings up at least some of the building stuff, like you can still only have one kitchen. And then it almost becomes like a parking spot in the city. Nobody necessarily uses the parking spot, but parking spot is still tied in as a way to keep the density down.
Yeah, I know. The problem with a single housekeeping unit, ultimately with the definition, is that besides the fact that it's somewhat open to interpretation, is that there's almost like an essence behind it. I don't think you can break it down to, it's one of those where you'd have to really interpret it, you'd have to look at probably 17 different factors of and you're not going to be able to check off, all the boxes. You know what I mean? I mean, there are families, little related families who probably do not operate 100% as a single housekeeping unit because one person does all the cleaning.
I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Let's face it, things have changed over the years, and what this bylaw is set up to address, it isn't the real world anymore.
Understood. But it equates it to I think it's fair to say that a single housekeeping unit is to equate to a family style unit of a collective congregating a number of people who are living more than just physically in the same building. Is that fair document?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Put that as the finding and take out the part about the common spaces.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I just
And then,
Brevity should prevail here.
and then just go, if you want, just the next sentence, the board did not receive information. Sorry.
We don't know.
if we're going to say that in this sentence, I think I might be a little bit more precise along the lines of the board did not receive particular information to indicate the day-to-day activities or
Behavior.
what's that?
Behavior?
Activities and behaviors of the individuals residing in those, something like that. Is that, see what I mean?
Yes, I think it's,
Sorry, I'm not putting it in my finger very well, but we've been doing this for 2 hours and 15 minutes, so that's right.
I think it's kind of ties back to the burden of proof.
Well, I think it's just the idea is that we know that there are these people in there. We know that some of them watch TV, some of them are using the kitchen because there are observations about that. They receive packages, they receive door dashes, they come and go. Even if it is, let's assume for the sake of argument that it's a full-out sober home. How this one operates? Do they just all live together? Do they get services? We know that they come and go. there's a question mark about what there is. The interesting thing about the Bach Realty case is that, like, yeah, they had like 13 people, but it was also 3 units. Like, talk about like not living as so again. Here they're living together. I mean, you could, I guess my point is, I can imagine making a generalization that there are instances where sober homes where if they live there for a longer period of time, maybe, I don't know, that they could be a single housekeeping unit. Here, no.
I think a lot of times it all comes down to the kitchen.
I mean,
Even though you don't have to use it anymore, which is really confusing.
I think it really goes, but I think it goes beyond that. It's the like, are you paying attention that you were there? You know what I mean? Like, hey, I asked Bob to open the door for me, or those sorts of little things. There's so much investigation that would have to go into that piece.
But like, you can't really police that piece, right? Like that's
Please what's going on inside.
right.
Not unless you were like some kind of documentary guy coming in and filming,
I think that the sentence is something more precise about the day-to-day individual and communal activities beyond. I think we have to acknowledge the observations that were made about like people watching TV, the comings and goings, and the people using the kitchen and food to be delivered. I think beyond that, I think that's as far as we can go. Does that make sense?
So say that that's the information that we've heard, and then there's not, because it's limited information, the board cannot conclude that they're acting in a way that is not a housekeeping unit. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I am not really part of it. I was just at the what we know, what we don't know.
I think when you have a bunch of people living together in a house, I think there is an assumption that it is some kind of a housekeeping unit and not a boarding house. I think that's an assumption.
It is. It was with the fact that the people who own the property are representing the sober, so that you have a little bit more insight. If it was just 5 random people living there, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
If not for the fact that these people have made representations as a sober, so it changes the complexion, I think, of how you that's the part that I'm struggling with. It goes back to the related issue, like the likelihood that you've got 5 related people that all live in the sober home together, is probably
That's quite a family problem. Yeah.
that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it also gets into the idea of how much we're willing to accept, what they're doing as a program. I mean, because if we looked at their mission statement and what they're trying to accomplish, then I think we could make some, assumptions at least about how they relate to one another.
It really depends on the residents. I mean, the other thing too is that it's a sober home, they're all trying to like help each other out. One could argue that like, hey, I got your back, hey, you're struggling, let's have a talk, let's figure it out. Or you get 5 people who go, I don't want to have anything to do with Bobby and Joe and Mary, like, forget them, I'm just gonna live in my corner.
I think that's another piece of this that is, it's not like a roommate situation where people have a choice of who they're living with. There's somebody, and that was the different feel. It's not like they were trusting each other. There was locked doors between each other. Like,
Well, they say that
different.
I'm sorry. They say peer-to-peer help, so that suggests some kind of a.
That's the premise. That's the premise.
But
Whether it actually occurs, we don't know. Right? There's no way to validate that.
But we can say that that's what it's premised on.
That's
Anyway.
the premise or the intention of that operation. Yes.
That wasn't the one I heard.
Okay, so for the
Yeah. I think they can run differently, basically.
do you believe that it's just sort of like the last sentence as an open question for right now, or do we say there's insufficient information to conclude one way or the other?
I feel more safe when they almost like a silent on the matter, or I feel like both sides got presented versus making. I don't think we know if it is or it isn't.
All right, just to keep going, why don't we just sort of can we keep that as the last sentence as an open question? All right. Okay. 25. So I had proposed those paragraphs at the beginning that sort of goes to what this is saying. Except for, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if we need to repeat it or, I'll give you the paragraphs to read. Frankly, I'll trust Michael for you to figure out like how it reads better from a readability standpoint. I liked it at the beginning because I thought it provided like a background in terms of chronology before we dive into the rules. Maybe there's a sum up paragraph that links it back. I don't know.
I think I like how it's in the beginning. I think it might be beneficial to have it
So
again,
we'll be back.
but I'll take a look at how it reads.
Okay.
Would it be verbatim in both places?
No,
Oh.
I think because I have it as like 3.5 paragraphs at the beginning because I break it down by piece. I think you do like a single paragraph at the end. That
Summarize it.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we're gonna have to rework that. 26.
I don't agree with it, so. When you talk to them, it's fine.
Well, it's also one of those where it depends on
I know.
if there. Well, there's that piece, but then there's the also like if there are sufficient votes to simply say, like, we think there's enough to say that there's more than 5 unrelated people living in the building, then that would trigger it as well. All right, let's just for the sake of for the moment, let's just keep that open for the moment. Okay. All right, so before we move on to section Roman numeral 5, are there any additional findings, facts, observations that we haven't talked about that should be in section 4? Again, this is not your only opportunity to say so, but I figured I would ask now. All right, well, think about it. Obviously, if it's in the record, it's in the record. So, so there's some of a safety net in that regard.
I think too, we don't need an answer right now because we've been going 2.5 hours. I will be sending this out before the next meeting,
right.
so if there are other findings you'd like to add, I can certainly take those in prior to that.
Yeah.
So no pressure.
Yeah, but I would think about like what else might be missing that we want to put in there from a background perspective for context, something like that. Whether or not it's I've reached some sort of like judgment is different as opposed to you need to state for the record, like the statements that say the owner wasn't here. It's owned by an LLC, things like that.
I just like to have a better way of identifying sober home as something else. Because we don't know, we have not been provided any information other than people saying sober home, what the
Well, I think it's also
policy actually represents.
right. I think we can probably agree. I mean, that's why I had this moment being like, what is the definition of this? I mean, we can all talk about it, but my guess, and I'm looking at you, Maria, my guess is that you could go to 7 different sober homes, quote unquote sober homes, and there might be little differences in terms of the services they provide. Maybe they're voluntary. Maybe there's a premium package you pay for. I don't know what. All right, well, think about that. That would be something that probably at the top that we want, maybe it's just, this is what, we can say what we know, but maybe it's something at the top that says this is what we don't know, or, this is our working, query whether we want to say like, it's been represented as a sober home, which based on the limited information that we have, our understanding is X, whatever that is, and maybe it's going to have to be something generic.
Maybe before we close the hearing, we should have asked for a site specific.
That would be nice. So, okay. But she said the vote of each member. Does we need to do a roll call?
Yes, I think she's recommending a roll call vote.
Okay.
So then those will be I think if it is unanimous, I can write unanimous. If it's not unanimous, then I will indicate.
Of course, yeah, yeah.
And then I will also need to add that Andy Crosby is not a voting member and that Ruth was not present.
Right.
Throughout the entire proceedings.
All right, so let's talk about section 5. I'm not asking for a motion for a vote today. We're not going to do that. But I'm interested. Well, actually, can we talk about it? Can we put it up for a vote?
You can talk about what a vote could be.
Yeah. So there's two pieces. The first is the building commissioner's decision, but the second piece I think is the one that I really want to kind of focus on. Do the second part first. Is sort of the back half of that that section.
If we're agreeing with the building commissioner's finding, I don't think we have any contact with the solar home people.
What I might think,
If we were issuing a decision, then we would, but without that, I don't know if we have any. We're just saying we agree with what the building commissioner said, and what he's done is it.
and not take any independent action,
Not taking any independent action.
because why? Sorry, just walk me through it. Sorry.
Because that's up to the building commissioner to make those actions. You suggest they send out a cease and desist or provide information that you've got 5 or fewer people in the house, but it's not I don't think it's our prerogative according to Mass General Law to do that.
Why?
Because we agreed with the building commissioner.
Except for the fact that the building commissioner didn't say that.
Yeah, we're not in a
But
situation
we're
where we're
not
acting
there
on behalf of the building
because
commissioner, we're acting independent.
But we're not. But we're not policing. We're exercising our own independent authority.
Think about it.
No. I understand. I know it. Trust me. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
The first time I sort of thought about it, it seemed odd to say we agree, and now we're going to do all these other things. You know what I mean? But I think that there's an opening to do that here.
We could ask the building commissioner to come and see us and we can discuss it. Things that he should do, but I don't think we should direct anything.
Just from a philosophical perspective?
Yeah, because we agreed to it. We agreed to his decision.
Except his decision doesn't say that it's.
Then you disagree with his decision because it's incomplete.
No, it's not. No, it's the fact that he didn't go as. It's like he stopped short. And I'm saying, yes, I agree with what you did up to this point. Had you gone further, however, and I'm kind of filling in the gap.
Think about it.
No, I understand. No, yeah.
I mean, we're saying,
It's also the fact that I think we have more information than he did.
Oh, yeah.
we're saying it has to be a dwelling unit of no more than 5 unrelated people, and we're saying we want the building commissioner to verify that. In other words, this is how we define the law. Now we're asking the building commissioner to see if it's being observed within the bylaw.
Well, no,
That's just his normal, that's his normal job.
but this goes farther.
Yeah.
This is where we actually exercise our independent authority to put the burden on the owner to prove that he's in compliance. And if I go out of bounds here, let me know. The idea being is that if the owner does not, then it's upon the building commissioner to decide essentially what to do about it.
Then we want to disagree with the building commissioner's decision as it's not being complete and send what we think he should have done to the owner of the property. The building commissioner had a decision, but he didn't say everything he should have said. And now we can say that directly to the owner of the property.
So if he said to them, the use is a boarding house.
He
God,
said
you were
that-
stuck on that sentence.
Yes, I am. Because that's essentially, they then have to come forward with a change of use. Wouldn't they?
They're not appealing that. So
it's not part of it.
they may disagree and say they're not a boarding house, but the matter is about the classification that was presented to the applicant before us, not the property owners. That was just supplemental information.
Okay.
So there.
So I understand.
Oh, can I ask a question? Sorry. So board orders the operator. How do we do that?
So the way that this is written, we're not providing direct instructions to the building commissioner. It's the way that I'm reading this, it's more of a recommendation of action to take. Cause it could be,
Like, I can't send out
like we're not ordering them to provide 5 leases or to give us like a picture of each person living there or sending camera footage. We're just saying that the property owner should provide some evidence to the building commissioner that there's 5 or fewer people living there. And it's up to the building commissioner to then either agree that, yep, that's sufficient, or to disagree and say, nope, that's not sufficient, and go forward with some other action. It's really up to this board to determine, is it clear that the dwelling unit is the use for the solar home?
I assume we can also ask the building commissioner to report to us. I mean, we can request.
You can request it, but I don't think you can do that through this decision.
It'll be a separate communication.
But the board wouldn't necessarily have anything, it can't act on that.
No, I understand, but at the same time.
So you basically agree with what I said.
I agree. I think, sorry. I agree that there is limits to what the board can do. But I think it is something that the board can provide a path forward for the building commissioner based on what we've heard and some of our concerns to make sure that they're addressed. But yeah, it's a tough situation because you can't go one or the other without.
Yeah, you can't direct the building commissioner. Only the selectman can do that.
No. I mean, sorry. Yes. Though arguably, I mean, technically, yes, we can't force the building commissioner to do something, but if we render a decision, it's the building commissioner's job then to act on that. And if he chooses, not to, it's the select board's responsibility, right? Essentially to tell the commissioner you're not doing, right?
Look at me.
No, I'm looking at Val, I'm looking at Val.
I kind of think that there might be 2 different conversations happening here. If I can just, I feel like there's one answer to what is provided to the building commissioner and what happens next. But then there's this question of ordering the operator of the sober home to do something. I think that's what your initial question was, Ernie.
Our decision could be
Right.
the decision that sent by the building inspector or commissioner was incomplete, that we were directing you to provide the following information to the building commissioner.
That's how I interpret what this says, that it is an order to the operator of the sober home to provide information. I think we can have Robin's input on this, but I do think that's what is said. I don't know if you.
And I'm sure the building commissioner is going to follow up on his order.
Well, the order is
6 or less.
the order is not to the
5 or
building
less.
commissioner.
Yeah,
See, that's where it's not, we're not, that's where I was sort of, there's a difference between, in my opinion, reading how this has been written, there's a difference between us saying the zoning board of appeals is directing or requesting or authorizing, I don't know, fill in your verb, the building commissioner to do the following things. As opposed to this, which says we are ordering it, that implies that we have the independent authority. I don't know who physically does it. I mean, but the thing is though, is that in reading chapter 48, section 14, I read that statute as saying we do have the independent authority. I don't know who's the physical, I don't know if it's me as the chair, who does it, but it reads as if we have the independent authority to do those things.
We disagree with this decision.
I think we can ask town
I think it's
council
I
what follow up would be.
I think it's this weird scenario where it's a dual track. Don't get me wrong, it's bizarre. You know what I mean? Because the clean is we agree.
Remember, he's bigger than you too.
Yeah. But I think we just want to kind of close that loop because I think it's clear we know what we want in the end. It's about who and how. You know what I mean? Because like I said, the way chapter 14 reads, we have the independent authority to do so. I just don't know, I'm just being very honest. If that's true, I don't know if does he have, I mean, unless we're asking to do something illegal, and obviously we're not, but if it's within the bounds of the bylaw, is he required to do so? I mean, I don't know, is there an analogous scenario where we issue an order and the building commissioner must do it?
I think that's a good question for Robin. I don't have an example
Okay.
here, but there could be one from another town or before my time.
Yeah.
yeah, there's nothing within the last.
No, I know, and I even looked, and I appreciate that, yeah. I mean, I will say, I'm sorry, please go ahead.
In exercising the power granted by this section, a board of appeals may, in conformity with the provisions of this chapter, make orders or decisions, reverse or affirm in whole or in part, or modify any order of the decision, and to that end shall have all the powers of the officer for whom the appeal is taken, and may issue or direct the issuance of a permit.
I think it's that and we have all the powers, essentially, of the zoning enforcement officer.
Ask Robin.
We'll have Robin help with this.
She can come and talk to us.
I will say, just to be a little picky, on that section 14 section, I would say, again, it refers to the operator. I would just go back to the property owner, not the operator of the sober home, the property owner.
That's who we're dealing with.
I don't want to talk about, there's no operator, that muddles it. It's got to be the property owner. I don't like the phrase sufficient information. I think it needs to be, I got to think about it, but I would say like,
Are you referring back to,
No, this sentence here, in this,
something along the lines of like, I would say credible written evidence. I think first of all, it's got to be in writing. Like, they can interpret what that means however it wants, and some credible, substantiated, something like that. I don't know. I got to think about that. But I think sufficient information is too fluffy. And that's just,
I mean, we could get legal with, what's this burden of proof here, preponderance or clear and convincing, and using one or the other.
yeah, I don't know if we can go that far, but definitely it's got to be in writing. I mean, I do like the fact to confirm. Anyway, we can think more about that, and also the intersection of the decision. But think about, to the extent that we want to put some more meat on the bones there, of whatever we're asking, whoever we're asking, whether it's we're asking the owner or we're asking the building commissioner to ask the owner. Like, if we want to put some more meat on that, I would think about.
Ultimately, to put more meat on it, I really think we do have to rely on the building.
Oh, no, absolutely, no.
However we word this.
Yeah.
Wherever we put.
I'm trying to toe the line between one, understanding that the building commissioner needs to have a measure of discretion within the scope of his job, and, like, to render a decision, but also, I think by putting a little bit more meat on the bones, it also might help him and provide him some guidance in terms of what, he should be asking for and what would rise to that level. I mean, the interesting thing is that if we can order it directly, then we can decide whether that, we can decide. Well, we can, not that we can decide, but we can go over the farther. So, okay. Please.
So we're gonna need another meeting.
Yep.
And time is running out.
Yeah, but we're okay for April 6th. That gets us within 3 days.
I'll be on Zoom.
You will be on Zoom?
Yes.
Okay. If I can make a suggestion, which is, as Michael's gonna do the yeoman's work of putting a revised decision together.
Yeah.
Once that gets circulated, not that I don't trust technology, but to the extent that you have suggestions or changes or red lines, I would try to get those to him ahead of time. Frankly, I would ask everybody if we can to get them ahead of time. I think that'll move things along and it'll narrow the spots where we have differences. Obviously, we've identified some of those already, but like ideally, we're not going to go paragraph by paragraph going, are there any typos? You know what I mean? Like, if we can just knock those out ahead of time, then we can focus our discussion on the 2 or 3 or 4 bigger ticket items that we've identified.
So will these be emailed to us? In other words, oh, good, yeah.
So as a suggestion, when we have these open discussions, maybe you should just highlight those sections, so it's, make sure that the attention is
properly focused.
Yeah.
And Michael, can you email me the link, along with the email to me, the link to get in for Zoom?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good.
I should mention there's a slight chance I might have to Zoom. I shouldn't have to, but just because I am traveling internationally the day before, so you just never know.
That's fine. That's okay. All right. Anything else from both the members and from staff on this issue, this matter?
One quick question. Would the board like to individually sign it, or would you still like Andy to be the one to sign on behalf of the board?
I don't see any reason to change anything.
In other words, to quote John Hancock, we'll all hang together or we'll hang separately.
He'll go to court.
Yeah, I'm fine with anything.
Just wanted to.
What do you want to ask me?
He elected you. All right, any other items to talk about this, at least for tonight? Obviously, we'll have another run at this again. So, and for what it's worth, just to be very clear, because this is all part of deliberation. If suddenly you show up on Monday, next Monday, and you're like, you know what, I'm thinking differently about something, I mean, this is still part of the deliberation. So I'll make very clear that nothing is final, and people are welcome to, reach the decision at that time as well.
And so, again, any of the communication is point to point. There's no general communication. Right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, so to the extent that anyone is submitting red lines, those should go to Michael directly, and not to the rest of us. To the extent that, they're brought in earlier rather than later, Michael does a great job of trying to sort of consolidate everything. But to the extent that we can't, then, so be it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay. All right. I think that's it for right now. Other than this matter and then the comprehensive permit matter on April 6th, I think those are the only substantive matters.
Yes, so
Okay.
I'll send you the draft agenda tomorrow.
Great, that'd be perfect.
And I'll try to get the attention of.
No problem. Yes, I will put that in tomorrow.
So, and obviously the drafting and circulated to us will also go to her.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Anything else from members of the board, staff? All right. I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:45.
Second. Motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned, we'll see everybody in a week.
Happy Easter or good Passover.